Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again. Welcome back to my complete 2019 Blu-ray collection video. This is the shelf by shelf guide. So we are now up to shelf number 6. We'll get straight to it. So starting things off with this shelf, we're still in the seas. And it's one of my favourite films of all time, the Italian classic Cinema Paradiso, a brilliant release from Arrow Academy. Next up, we've got a revered classic from the golden age of Hollywood cinema. This is Citizen Kane. Here we've got a release from the early 2000s. This is a film that's been made in Brazil. It's called City of God. An excellent film, well worth seeking out to watch. And here we've got a Chinese film. This is called City of Life and Death. This is set during World War II, during the Japanese occupation. Here we've got a special edition from Arrow Video. This is Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead. So as with most of their special releases, you get obviously the booklet. It comes with a poster. This one's got the remastered film as well. An excellent film from Fulci. Next up, we've got another release from Arrow Academy. This is an Egyptian film called Clash. It's set during the 2013 Egyptian Revolution. Quite a claustrophobic film. It's all set in the back of a riot van. Very well made though, worth seeking out to check out. Here's a release from the HMV Premium Collection. This is the original Clash of the Titans. This film is a guilty pleasure of mine. Not a massive fan of Adam Sandler's work, but I do like the film Click. Here we've got some classic early 90s action with Sylvester Stallone. It's the amazing Cliffhanger. Here we've got another release from Arrow Video. This is the most recent film from the director Gaspar Noé. This, of course, is Climax. I think it's quite divisive. This is the kind of film I think you love or hate. It's quite experimental. Not so much a straightforward narrative going on here. So it's not a film for everyone, but I think it's pretty damn good. Here we've got a couple of films that my wife bought. So we've got the original Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and its sequel. Quite enjoyable, these films. They're nice to relax to. Here's a box set I bought a while back containing the first 2 Cloverfield films. So as you can see here in the box set, we've got the original Cloverfield and then the second one in the series, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Not yet seen or bought the third one, Paradox, I think it's called. So this next film is a horror film called Clown. It's daft but enjoyable. This next film is a release from Network. It's called The Club. It's a film that's been made in Chile. Pretty hard-hitting subject matter about a bunch of secluded priests who have committed atrocious crimes, basically living in isolation. Next up, something a little bit more light-hearted, an Arrow release again. This is Conan Tate. Not so light-hearted. The next film is a Japanese film called Cold Fish from the cult director Sion Sono. Here we've got the horror film The Collector. This is an example of the kind of films that were made in the wake of the success of the Saw films, although this is one of the better ones. Next up we've got a cheap purchase, which was Colombiana. Here we've got the special edition release of The Colour of Pomegranates from Second Sight. So this is a brilliant release from Second Sight. This is very much an art house film, The Colour of Pomegranates. It's an Armenian film. It's partly a Russian production as well. I think it was financed by a lot of Russian money. Yeah, I mean, how to describe this film? Pretty difficult. I don't know if you've ever seen something like The Holy Mountain. It's kind of on the similar vein to that, I think. Wow, it's an experience anyway. You've got to see it just to say that you've watched it before. Moving on to something much more mainstream now, we've got the classic Schwarzenegger's film Commando. This next film is called A Company Man. It's a Korean film, although this is it's an import from USA from Wellgo USA. And then we've got a 90s action classic, Con Air. Next up, we've got another action film. This is basically a US remake of Battle Royale, except without the school children. The Condemned. Another great release from Third Window Film. This is the Japanese film Confessions. Next up, we've got the two Conjuring films, as you can see, Part 1 and Part 2, the Enfield Case. Really enjoy these. I think they're really well made modern horror. I think James Wan is a really good director. Next up, we've got the science fiction film Contact, directed by Robert Zemeckis. I really am fond of the author that this film is based on, which is the astrophysicist Carl Sagan. If you've ever watched the original Cosmos series, it's absolutely fascinating. This is a good piece of science fiction, though, about, well, as you can imagine, contact with an alien life form. Really good. Another science fiction film here. This is another Arrow release. It's Contamination. Next up, we've got a film called The Conversation, directed by the brilliant Francis Ford Coppola, starring the one and only Gene Hackman. Next up, we've got a Yakuza film from director Kinji Fukasaku. This is another Arrow release. It's Cops vs. Thugs. Next up, we've got another Arrow Academy release. This is a documentary called The Creeping Garden. Of all topics, this focuses on slime molds. It's a lot more interesting than it would let you think it is, and it's got a brilliant soundtrack. It's definitely worth watching and seeking out. Bit of classic 80s here. We've got Crocodile Dundee Parts 1 and 2. A great film from the director Guillermo del Toro. This, of course, is Kronos. A really good release from BFI. Here we've got the British film The Crying Game. Next up, we've got another science fiction horror film. This one's worth checking out if you've never seen it. It's called Cube. Next up, we've got the fairly recent release from Eureka of the 80s horror film Cujo. And here we've got another Eureka release from the Masters of Cinema range this time. It's the Japanese film Cure from the director Kiyoshi Kurosawa. This is one of his best films. It's really worth seeing. Here we've got A Cure for Wellness from director Gore Verbinski, directed the Pirates of the Caribbean films as well. I unfortunately haven't had a chance to check this one out yet. And I'm not sure why, because I've had it in my collection for several months now. I really need to get round to this. I've heard mixed reviews about it, but it does look quite good to me. Here we've got a great film from director David Fincher. This, of course, is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Next up, we've got a great film. This is a horror film called Cut and Run. It's from the director Ruggero Deodato. Next up, we've got a little box set containing Angels and Demons and The Da Vinci Code. So this release just contains both films. I still haven't had a chance to watch the third film in this series yet, Inferno, although I've seen online that it's now going quite cheap, so I might get around to watching that soon, because I do enjoy these films. They are quite good. Okay, so last but not least, the last film on the shelf is a Japanese film called Danganronpa, another great release from Third Window Films. Okay then, so that about wraps things up for shelf number 6. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be sure to get shelf number 7 filmed and uploaded as soon as possible. Thank you very much for your time, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.